when you go big in business, you got to have your head on straight. Get involved, start the conversation, start, your path forward, and be looking at where can I improve personally. Personal healing yourself. It's like taking the sand out of an engine. You're removing something that's inherently holding you back.
Welcome, everyone, to the Road Less Traveled Show. This is a show about people that were successful in a previous career and left that career to go down a different path. I'm your co-host, Richard Coyne.
And I'm your co-host, Bill Zahller.
On today's show, we're so pleased to have Tate Siemer with us. Tate, welcome.
It's great to be here, guys. Honor, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely, Tate. Well, thanks again for being on the Road Less Traveled Show. To start with, can you tell our listeners a little bit about your background, what career you were in originally, and how long you were in that line of work?
Sure. Yeah. Originally a photographer, professional photographer by trade, majored in fine art photography in college. I actually finished with a degree in psychology, but moved to Utah in '99 from Cincinnati, and which is my hometown. And so I've been here 23 years. When I moved here, I got a job as a professional ski photographer, and then started my own company doing wedding photography and more formal portrait photography. That was really the beginning of my entrepreneurial ventures. It was the first company that I owned and ran myself and lived on. It supported me. And then in '06, a friend of mine was in an investing class, was learning about the basics of flipping and wholesaling, and it's all single family oriented, basically. And he got into a project, and it was a triplex. I'm like, really? Like, you can buy a triplex? Like, isn't that for rich people? And so it was very eye opening to me. And so I joined the class with him, learned the basics of real estate investing, and started doing my own projects. Got my real estate license, started helping other people do projects, and then the crash happened in '08, and I hadn't really hit a stride as far as feeling really successful and like in a zone or in a groove yet. And so I went back to photography for a while after the crash, because all the loans that we were using to flip houses were gone, essentially. And then in 2011, my original boss in the ski photography operation, who's my best friend, has been since the whole time, he and I teamed up and started flipping houses in Salt Lake City here, hard and heavy. We did, as many houses as we could at a time with our own money and our own work, which wasn't very many, right? It's not very scalable. Yeah. And after about 7 years of doing that, we kind of hit a wall as far as just realizing that we weren't growing the way we wanted to, and that there wasn't a whole lot of ceiling for us in our current model. So we started looking at other stuff, other models, and we did some land entitlement deals where we would buy, in Salt Lake, 5 years ago, well, just like now, there is a massive demand for higher density stuff in the urban areas. And so we would buy single family houses on big lots and have the lots entitled for high density stuff, townhomes usually, and sell those projects entitled to builders and developers. We did did pretty well with that. And then we decided to try building ourselves. So we built some we tore down 2 single family houses and built 6 townhomes, and those did not go well. We got kind of creamed on those, and there were a number of fatal flaws, but the worst was that we just didn't hire a very good builder. And we're not builders ourselves, so we didn't know what we didn't know, right? There was a lot of things that were going sideways in the project early on that we didn't really catch because of the builder. And we ended up having to fire the builder, legal stuff, it basically was a flop. However, during that time, we had a colleague brought me a 12-unit apartment building in South Salt Lake City, and said, you guys should do this project. And he said, here's how I would do it. Here's how I'd finance it. Here's the strategy. And so we bought it and basically did a head to toe remodel on this community. It was half vacant already, and the other half were month to month. So we got all the tenants out, brought in a construction team, did a head to toe remodel, everything like DPO membrane roofs, 95% furnaces, solid surface countertops, low E windows, the whole 9 yards, and sold that property about a year later. And we were able to double the rents at that place.
Wow. Yeah.
And we did real well on it. And it was hugely eye-opening to us. It was eye-opening to us from day one, really, when we looked at the underwriting on the deal, because it was the first time that we ever underwrote a deal that had cash flow and revenue and income. And everything else we had ever done was something we'd buy, fix up, hold on, hold the holding costs during the time we owned it, and then sell it, which is by nature a speculative venture, right? Because you're buying something and banking on somebody buying it for a profit and to you. And that is, it's investing. So it's not gambling, right? But it is speculative in nature, what you're doing. And when you're buying a profitable apartment community that has revenue, has historical financials, meets the need, a universal need for all people, like you have something that is tried and true, has a track record, and has inherent value from the income that it's producing. And so ever since that point, we have been completely focused on larger scale apartment communities. We've bought 7 communities since then that we own now in Columbus, Ohio, and Oklahoma City. We have 595 units, totaling about $55 million in value. We're buying a heavy value add project right now in Lawton, Oklahoma. And so that'll be number 8. We're looking at selling a couple this year, going full cycle. And then we're always looking, right? I've got stuff that I was underwriting this morning, some deals that I'm underwriting this morning. So, to a couple other things about me real quick. I host a podcast called the Apartment Gurus. It's just completely focused on this industry, and it's interview based. We have experts on every show and do a real deep dive interview, usually about an hour long. So that's called the Apartment Gurus. And then I do one-on-one mentoring coaching as well, where I train people to become lead sponsors on deals like us. Nice. So yeah, that's kind of Tate Siemer in a nutshell.
Nice. Tate, question for you. So maybe the first property you mentioned where it was existing, 12 units, but half vacant, and the rest was month to month. Were you renovating a unit at a time, maybe doing exterior all at once, but they just renovating a unit at a time there, and therefore be able to repopulate it with more rent, therefore to keep the cash flow going? Is that how you did it?
No, we didn't do it that way. The tenants that were in there were not tenants that were serviceable as far as keeping revenue alive. They just, they were delinquent on rent. They just weren't going to be the future of the property, and we needed a clean slate to work with.
Got it.
So that we could bring in, like I said, a kind of a larger construction team to do it, to basically do it all in one fell swoop.
I gotcha. So then once you complete the complete rebuild, like you said, or whatever, you brought in a whole new tenant base with double the rents, as you said, and therefore you're able to, even despite having to put so much money into it, you were still able to cash flow really well in that situation, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, after stabilization, it was cash flowing really well. Yep.
Awesome. Okay.
Yep. Obviously, during renovation, it wasn't cash flowing at all, so we had to plan for that and have reserves and whatnot. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
By the way, we did that deal 100%, no money of ours in the deal. We got a hard money loan from a local lender that we'd used many times in the past, had a long track record with, for 90% of the purchase and 100% of the fix up. Wow. And then we got an investor to bring in the down payment. And we did end up at the very end, there were some overages that we had to cover, but the meat of the project was essentially other people's money.
And people say you have to be rich to do these deals. You don't. So
that's right. Yeah, you got to have a rich network, and and your network is your net worth, as they say. And and so, if you have that, which anybody can have, if you're a decent person and good at communication and good at building relationships, that's where in this business, in the multifamily space, that's where everything happens. And it is in relationships. Single family is different. You can do the solopreneur thing in the single family space. It's very transactional, kind of one-off deals. In multifamily, it's very, very different. You want long-term relationships that you're doing deal after deal after deal with the same brokers and the same investors and same lenders. Like, it's definitely a long game play in the space.
Yeah, for sure. Richard, I say that a lot too. I mean, it's not necessarily in the real estate business. We're in the relationship business, like you said. That's what it all boils down to at the end of the day, between the brokers, your investors, whoever. It's definitely the long game is a phrase we use a lot also.
Yep.
Yeah. So go back to maybe your photography days. Perhaps it was you're cruising down ski slopes, taking photography shots, etc. Is there a funny story you can share?
Oh, geez. I don't know that I've got a specific story, but being a ski photographer is very interesting. The way that we did it was, we're basically a commercial tourist operation, or we're a commercial photography operation that catered to tourists. So what we would do every day is go out on the mountain with our skis and our cameras, and we would set up in a strategic spot on the mountain, usually in the middle of a run, and we would shoot action shots of skiers as they came down the mountain. One of the very fun things, I say fun in air quotes, about that was people thought it was a really fun sport to spray the photographers, right, with snow. So there were many times that I would be, literally camera in hand, up to my face, pulling shooting the trigger, getting somebody as they're skiing right at me, and the last shot you see is this white wall of snow coming at me. And once in a while, unfortunately, I'd kind of lose my cool with that, because it really would screw things up. And obviously there were days that were cold out there, days where the sun wasn't shining and maybe it was snowing or it was windy. And so getting sprayed, after being out there for 2-3 hours is quite, it's not fun, but let's see. I'm trying to think if there's any other real funny, this isn't funny at all. I was almost caught in a fatal avalanche, actually. One of the first 3 years I was there, and unfortunately a young woman actually perished, and it happened in a spot where I was set up and shooting 10 minutes before the avalanche happened. And it's, as long as I've been here, 23 seasons, it's the only inbounds in the resort fatality that I'm aware of.
Wow.
Pretty sad, but Snowbird is the ski resort out here in Utah, where I ski and worked. And I worked at Alta as well. A lot of people have heard of Alta.
They love snowboarders out there, don't they? It's at Alta.
Right, at Alta, there's no snowboarders allowed. Yeah, but they're big time mountains. Snowbird especially is just 3,000 vertical feet, second only to Jackson Hole in the lower 48, and it's steep. It's it's very, very avalanche prone. And it's a lot of fun. I love it. But it's an adventure, and those 10 years of doing ski photography were 10 of the best years of my life. The first year especially was coming from Cincinnati, flatland guy, kind of chubby and whatnot, getting up at 11,000 feet and moving around and carrying a camera bag around on skis all day. I lost like 30 pounds really fast. And it was like discovering a whole new universe. And the best thing I ever did with my life really was moving to Utah, and kind of, I was 26 at the time and didn't have much professional direction. And really the universe kind of rolled out the red carpet for me. So many great things happened that first year to me, and I'm super grateful.
Nice.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say, other than becoming people trying to make you a human snowman, what was the deciding factor that got you to leave the photography world to get into real estate?
Yeah. I was, the meat of my income was weddings, shooting, being a wedding photographer and a portrait photographer. And for those of you that have either done that or know someone that has done that, it's a lot of work. It's, it's not being at the wedding for 5 hours, and it's not just being at the wedding for 5 hours and shooting and creating art out of an event, and covering your butt on all the photography that you need to get to make the customer happy. It's the editing, it's the consulting before the event, it's the marketing, and the reality is in Utah especially, there's the predominant religion here is very family oriented. People get married young, and everybody gets married, and there's a lot of competition in the photography world, and so there was not a lot of margin in what I was doing. And I knew, and you can't, that's another thing that you can't really scale as a photography business, because if you're marketing it as you, then you're the one that has to perform the services. And so I basically got to a point where I realized that photography was not going to bring me the lifestyle that I wanted to live. And real estate could, for sure. I saw that right away. And I knew that my natural skill set and my natural personality would lend really well to the real estate space. So, and like I said, seeing my friend do that triplex was really the beginning of it all. And, it took me that was in 2006. It took me until 18 to get my head around, hey, maybe we can do apartments. And that took watching other people do it. And especially what it really took was a really good friend of mine basically giving a presentation at a real estate investor association here in Utah. And it was on the 5 ways to get into investing in apartments. And that was the first time that I really considered that we could do that. So, those mindset shifts along the way are so key, because you hear it all the time, whatever you believe you can achieve and whatnot. And it's almost cliche, but in this space with my clients, my coaching clients, for instance, I take on coaching clients that have an inherent belief that they can do it, because I know that puts us way ahead of the game. If that belief is there, then it's just a matter of putting the pieces in place and doing it. If there's a belief, if there's limiting beliefs around I can't do it that aren't surmountable, I won't take that client on, because there's really no way around that limiting belief. It's a self-fulfilling belief. So getting your head around hey, I can do this. And by the way, I think one of the best ways to do that is to go to one of these national multifamily conferences. There's 3 of them that I recommend every year. And if you wanted to reach out to me, email me or whatever, I'll share those conferences with you. But I think there's nothing like being in a room with 400 people or 800 people or whatever it is, that are doing what you want to be doing at a high level. There's nothing like that as far as charging your mindset, and you're sitting there in this room going, these guys are just people. Like, they put on their pants the same way that I do every morning. Like, they're maybe they have $1 billion portfolio, but I'm not that different than them. And I can do this too. Like, those shifts in mindset are paramount. Like, they're foundational. And in my opinion, for the investment of a 2 to 3 day conference, the plane ticket, the lodging, and the tuition to get in the conference, like, there's no better bang for the buck in my world.
Agree.
And then coaching too, like paid coaching, paid mentorship. If you want to take a 3-year timeline and shrink it down to 6 months, for whatever it costs for a year-long paid one-on-one mentoring program, I think it's absolutely, there's no substitute for the power of that, and the time consideration, of crunching a timeline down like that. So yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So think back, maybe before the housing crash. You talked about you were just starting to get into the fix and flip side of things, and then the crash changed the way things worked, just with the loan situation, as you mentioned. But initially, were there some obstacles you had to overcome?
Well, back then, in 2006, my first deal was a $150,000 brick duplex that I bought. And right now that duplex, it's in a nice neighborhood in Salt Lake City. It's probably a $500,000 duplex, at least. So the point I'm making is that the barrier to entry back then was pretty low. Prices were low, and loans that was back in the no doc loan period. So loans were easy to get, and there was hard money too. Obstacles really, you put me in a class or a seminar or a conference and tell me how to do something and show me somebody that's already doing it. I generally take on a fair amount of confidence that I can do it. So once I was in that course that I took, which was basically paid mentorship. It was just in a group. And this was pre-Facebook, pre-Zoom, pre-online meetup days. It was in person. Once I was in there, I don't remember there being any major hurdles, although I will say this, that I remember I needed like $20,000 to do that deal, and I couldn't raise it. Like I didn't have the resources or the know-how to go out and raise a tiny amount of money, relatively speaking. So I credit carded that deal, and handled it that way, and it worked out great. But it's funny to look back on something like that. We're raising, we had a webinar last night for our latest offering in Lawton, and we raised $500,000, within an hour or two. And we'll raise a little more than twice that for the whole raise. It's not a big raise, but again, it's just like, but you believe that you can do, you do, right, in life. So but as far as I don't really remember there being a huge mindset obstacle back then.
No,
and
that's fair.
I think that was, when you hire a coach or get in a mastermind with a guru or something like that, you are actually leveraging their confidence, and you're leveraging their experience and knowledge, but you're leveraging their confidence. And when you have somebody that's mentoring you or coaching you, that's very confident in your ability to do it, it wears off on you, and you take on that confidence yourself that you can do it. So again, you got to put yourself in the right rooms with the right people. If you want to really do this business well at a high level in a relatively short period of time. And I think, paid coaching is priceless in that regard. And there's great programs out there. And it's just a matter of finding one that you see the value in, and that you really click with the leader, the coach, right? Like you want to feel synergy with that person. And some people are going to be a good fit for you and some people won't, and that's fine. Like you want to go with the good fit.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, Tate, what was, as you look back to your real estate side of the career, what was one of your first victories you had in real estate? Were you like an aha moment, a light bulb that came on and said, yeah, this is something I can actually do. You've heard about it, you've seen your friends do it, but what was a moment when you realized that it's something that was a sustainable path forward for you?
Well, I talked about that first apart. I'll answer that in relationship to the multifamily space, because I think that's where I am now. That's where I coach people to be, and I have a podcast about it. So I'm obviously a huge believer in this space. That first deal that we did was real. It was just a huge aha moment. I actually remember very vividly sitting in this office where I am now, or my home office in Salt Lake City, with my partner, Carl York. And we were whiteboarding the deal, and with the underwriting and everything else in our hands. And at that point, we didn't know how to underwrite a multifamily deal, by the way. We were going off of somebody else's underwriting. But as we were sitting there, my partner looks at me and he goes, "Can you shoot a hole in this deal?" And I'm like, yeah, man, I see what you're saying. Like, this is something special. Like, we've never looked at a deal like this before, where we've had the revenue side and the income side. And in multifamily, unlike single family, the value of a property is based 100% on the income that it's producing. So you have a very scientific way of evaluating properties, as opposed to, we would sell single family houses and come to an agreement with the buyer, and they'd be all ready to close, and an appraiser would come in, and in his personal opinion, the property wasn't worth what we were selling it for. We'd lose money or lose profit as a result of that, right? Yeah. In the multifamily space, you're not subject to the whims or the opinions of somebody's appraisal. You're subject to the income that you're able to make the property produce. That was another big aha moment for us. But and then the other thing, these real estate investor association, local RIAs as they call them, just about every place has one now. If you're in a city, you likely have one. They're great, guys. Like, kind of like conferences. They're not as high level because you have a lot of like single family folks and people that aren't in the industry that want to be. So you're not necessarily at the same caliber of attendee, but nonetheless, there's people to meet, there's alliances to be made, there's things to learn. And being at that one meeting where my friend Adam Adams presented, he's now a good friend of mine. It was the first time I ever saw him or met him was at this RIA meeting. And he gave that talk on the 5 ways to become an apartment investor. That was huge. That was a huge aha moment for me. I went to a conference in Denver that he actually organized called the Finding Deals Summit a few months after that talk. And I look at that conference as really launching us into the larger scale multifamily space. Nice. By larger scale, I mean 50 units and up. Right? Gotcha. So that those were really the ahas. I think the best ahas, the biggest ahas, come from doing business, doing deals,
actually doing stuff. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We talk about it all the time, how there's so many people that love to learn, and we love to learn, and we love to educate, as well as we're big believers in receiving education. But at the same point in time, you still have to do something. You can't just have it be book smart and not take
That's
action.
Right.
Yeah,
that's right.
So, so Tate, as you are, let's maybe the question for the multifamily side now that you're doing now, is there a funny story that you can share? Maybe something happened to you recently.
Let's see, funny stories.
You can change names if you need to.
Yeah. Let's see. We bought I don't know how funny. I guess this is kind of funny. We bought a Class C minus property in Oklahoma, and that's probably being nice. And it was more distressed than we realized, and more stigmatized than we realized. And part of the problem was that we had homeless people breaking in to vacant units, and we had a lot of vacancies when we bought it. So it was like fighting a war for a while with trying to figure out how to keep brand new windows from being broken and appliances from being stolen and that sort of thing. So, we're based in Salt Lake City, and we visit our markets regularly. And I went to that property for, to basically to work on those issues. And I was out in the back of the property, just kind of walking around. There's a big grass area, like uncut grass, kind of green land, green space area behind our property. And I'm walking back there, and all of a sudden I get this like awful smell, like just terrible, rank smell. And I start looking around, and there's fluid running openly in the grass field, right?
Ugh,
so I start looking around. Turns out it's our main sewer line.
Oh,
out of a 60 unit building.
Yeah.
And it had been doing that, basically running, whatever you call it, raw sewage, for who knows how long. It was disgusting. And we obviously we fixed it. We fixed all the security issues. We did a bunch of fencing and cameras and gates. We actually have like key card gates on that property now. But it was shocking. It was like you're going to a very, very distressed property where you already have a lot of problems, and you're already fighting an uphill battle, and there's already frustration. Plus, at that point, we had a property manager that we ended up having to fire because they couldn't keep an on-site manager there.
Yeah.
And we went through 6 property managers in 7 months at that property, on-site managers. And then finally we just had to part ways. So we were dealing with a lot of problems there, and then to go there and then have it literally be a pile of dung, it was a kind of a smack in the face for sure.
Wow.
I'll say this about Class C, man, it's an animal. It's very, very different than Class B or A, and in the sense of, what you're dealing with on a daily basis, delinquencies, evictions, crime. Like there's a reason why you do Class C. Especially early in your trajectory. In my opinion, the barrier to entry is low. The opportunity for value add is often very high. And there's certainly nothing wrong with Class C. In fact, I think there's a lot right with doing Class C well, because you are providing affordable housing to people that need it. Yeah. And if you do it well, you're providing safe, clean, well lit, well organized, nice community spirit. If you're doing all of that stuff well, then you're providing a tremendous service to hundreds of people. But there's a lot that comes along with Class C, including open sewer lines. So
yeah.
Right. Well, Tate, where are you today on your journey? You see transition over to the larger multifamily, and so where are you today, and where's your like your 5-year goal or future plans?
Yeah. Today we are we're in acquisition mode. We see the current market as as a big opportunity. And by current market, we're in early February 2023 when we record this. We've gone through almost 12 months now of interest rate spikes. And, we went from interest rates in the 3s to interest rates in the 7s in the course of a year. That's obviously having a massive impact on value. It's having a massive impact on people's business plans. Loans are adjustable rate mortgages are coming due. They're maturing. That's putting people in a really bad situation. If you were not managing well going into this last year, then you're really hurting this year. So we're seeing a lot of what I call management opportunities, where the value add is just in managing the property well. We're seeing a lot of that right now. And all of a sudden you're starting to see some really motivated sellers. And I think that's the tip of the iceberg. I think, we've got another, year before interest rates start coming down again, and we get into maybe another upcycle. And I think that right now is the time to be pounding the pavement for the diamonds in the rough. So we're in acquisition mode. I want to be at 100 million in assets under management within a year. That's basically doubling our portfolio from where it is now, which is very doable. We've got all the pieces we need for that. We've got the equity partners and the lenders and the sponsors and everything we need to, we could do a $40 million deal right now if the right one came along. So, that's kind of where we are with. I just joined a group called Raise Masters, Hunter Thompson's group. I'll give him a little plug. I'm certainly not getting paid to do that, but that is a tremendous group of real estate entrepreneurs that are all in the capital raising business. So we're really like expanding our network, working hard on our own investor relations, our internal retail investors. That's really our focus for 2023 is raising capital. And then as far as, I don't do 5-year visions really, but I do more like a 3-year vision. I think 5, and that's really, I'm stealing that from the book Vivid Vision, by Cameron Herold, which I think is a fantastic book. It's basically a manual on how to create a 3-year vivid vision. And so for us in 3 years, I'd like to be at 200 million assets under management. I don't have the need to do a $500 million or $1 billion, at least not in the next 2-3 years. A lot of people have goals like that. I know the pain of growing fast. We grew really, really fast. We bought almost 600 doors in 18 months. And there are growing pains that go along with that.
Sure.
And sometimes there's mistakes you make as a result. So, I want to make sure that as we grow, that we're doing things right by our investors and right by our residents. Other than that, I love the thought leadership space. I'd love to be a speaker at the Best Ever conference, or Jake and Gino's conference, or one of the big national conferences, kind of a goal of mine, and just keep doing a great podcast. I love the podcast. It's kind of my baby. The guests that I have on are top level. I'm very, very blessed with the listenership and the attention it gets and the guests that I get on. And it kind of takes on a life of its own when you do that stuff really well. because that's been one of the best relationship developers I've had in the last 3 years has been the podcast.
Nice.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, that's great.
Tate, as you think about kind of where you are, what you're doing, and how you're growing, et cetera, is there something you do personally, or perhaps through your company, that you do to give back to help others?
Yeah. I'm a big dog person. I'm a single guy with no kids. 49. I've never been married, so I've had dogs, and they've been my family and my companions. I try to give as much to Best Friends Animal Society as I can, that rescues dogs.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, like, I just try to I try to basically come at every situation, every conversation that I have with people, whether that's a podcast listener, a potential coaching client, potential investor. Like, my honest intention in every one of those conversations is, how can I serve this person?
Yeah.
What needs do they have? Where's their bottleneck? Where are they getting hung up that I might be able to point them in the right direction and connect them with the right person or the right resource? That is my honest to goodness approach to every interaction in the business. And so, it's an internal way of giving back, because I'm giving back in the course of doing business. But it's, I think it's a very key part of our success is that people know me as somebody that's willing to jump on a 15-minute Zoom and jump into some underwriting and tell them if I think it's a good deal, with no strings attached. Don't have to be a coaching client, like stuff. And I don't have a ton of time, but like, I have a Calendly link, and people can book an appointment with me there for, consulting. I do my best to get to everybody and help out as best I can.
Nice.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there something you've recently implemented in your business at GreenLight Equity Group that's helped you scale and grow the company?
Yeah, so yes, basically, your systems and your processes are so key to this conversation, this question. I'll be totally honest with you. Like, our orientation coming from single family was just to go find deals and do them, right? Like, do deals, as opposed to building a business and a brand and systems and processes that is in the business of finding deals, funding deals, operating deals. We have taken on the latter model over the last couple of years. And that's a product of a few things. One of those things is that when you get as big as we got, as fast as we got with 2 people, we had a third partner for a while that went and started her own firm. But even with 3 of us, there was a lot to be doing. And if you're not getting things done systematically and as part of your regular systems and processes, things will fall through the cracks. We saw that happen. We've had that happen. So we're just kind of always building new systems and processes. We just built a contract to close marketing plan spreadsheet that has, every email that goes out to promote the webinar, and every reminder, and every, all those things, social media posts, et cetera. So I would say in general, I can't point to like one magic bullet for your answer on that one, but we're always building, we're always working on systems and processes, and eventually we'll grow. I see us bringing on an asset manager / due diligence manager here, hopefully in the next year. That's going to really free Carl and myself up to, to focus on the bigger rocks even than that, which, asset management is huge, by the way. It's where the rubber meets the road. It's where the deals either work or they don't. But, and that's, by the way, that's been a lesson too for us, because you go in green basically, and you buy 600 units, 7 different communities. All of a sudden you're an asset manager and you need to be doing it well. We were drinking from a fire hose for a long time with asset management.
Sure.
I'd say just in general, systems and processes, Bill.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah.
So Tate, besides moving to Utah, is there some advice you might give somebody who's considering making a path change?
Yeah, if you're considering the apartment space, the multifamily investment space, I know you guys, Richard and Bill, you're in it. Listeners, reach out and have conversations with people that are doing it, people that have offered their time and their attention to you. I know Bill and Richard would be more than happy to get on a Zoom with you guys and just brainstorm and brainstorm your business, talk about what you want to do, what you're already good at doing, and where you want to go. And people that are already in the business and doing it will at the very least be able to point you in the right directions, right? The right mentors, the right conferences, the right books, the right podcasts, the right action steps, how to build a brand, right? I can have a 10-minute conversation with somebody on how to build their company brand, and move them really to the next level. So it's free, it's quick, it's a way of engaging relationships. So I would encourage you to do that. I always love to talk to people in this space and people that are considering jumping in. So if you want to reach out to me, you can go to investwithgreenlight.com. I've got a Calendly link there. Happy to jam session with you guys anytime. But I would say that the other thing I would say is, and this is a very different level answer than what I just gave, but when you go big in business, and in my opinion, that's what, getting into commercial real estate deals is going big, in my opinion. You got to have your head on straight, right? And what I mean by that is if you have any real big personal hangups, whether that's, and I don't want to get I was a psych major, so I could get a little psychological here, but if you've got personal hangups that, or even professional hangups that are really getting in the way of you being successful, you got to take care of that stuff first.
Yeah.
And I don't mean I don't mean okay, I got to take care of this stuff. I'm going to have to work on that for a year and then get involved. I'm talking get involved, start the conversation, start, your path forward, and be looking at where can I improve personally? Is it therapy, right? Is that going to free me up? Is it a personal coach? Is it meditation or prayer or whatever it is that works for you? I'll just say this: personal healing yourself from anything that may need to be resolved and healed is it's like taking the sand out of an engine. It's you know what I mean? It's that's not maybe the best analogy, but it's you're removing something that's inherently holding you back. Right. And so I think that's all really worth looking at.
Yeah. Nice. Absolutely. Well, we'll put links to the show notes below in the podcast, and also links to your podcast as well. But we want to thank you today for being on the Road Less Travel Show. Really enjoyed the conversation and wish you continued success.
Thanks, guys. I really enjoyed this. It was great. And you're great hosts and great show. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Tate. And again, thank you again for being on. We'd also like to thank our listeners. Please continue to give us a 5-star rating so we can bring you more great content like Tate Siemer on our show today. And we also want to remind everybody of 2 things that Park Capital Partners has going on. First, we have the Park Capital Partners Value Add Fund, which is a 506c fund open today to accredited investors. And then finally, we also have the Park Capital Partners Foundation, which is a 501(c) nonprofit that we created as a way to further give back. One of the charities actually is ASPCA to help animals.
Oh, nice.
That's one of the causes. So the way that works quickly is that Bill and I fund the operations of the foundation from Park Capital Partners. That way the funds donated go to do their best work, which is to help others. Second, we donate personally. Third, we donate corporately. And then finally, when investors make invest with us in one of our projects, we make a donation to honor that investor to a pre-selected from a list of 15 pre-selected charities, including, as I said, ASPCA. So reach out to Bill and I. We certainly happy to have a conversation anytime. And thanks again for listening. And remember, folks, the road less traveled may be calling you. We recommend that you listen and take action. Thanks for joining.